And we are live, back again in House Transportation on Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. And our presentation scheduled for the next hour, or as long as it might take, or less. Getting an update on vehicle sales and what's happened since we left last May. What's happened in the world of sales of vehicles in Vermont, electric vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles, and anything else related to car sales, models, makes, and what else is up and down in the 6+ months since we've been here that has such a major influence on our revenues, et cetera. So I welcome Mr. Matt Cota, representing Vermont Automotive Vehicle and Automotive Dealers Distributors Association. So happy New Year. Welcome back to the committee. We're looking to bring everybody up to speed on all of the data that you gather in your association or your members do, and share it with us as best you feel you can.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Chair Walker. Thank you for having me back. For the record, my name is Matt Cota. My firm is called Meadow Hill, and I work for a number of nonprofit trade associations, including of relevance to this committee, the Vermont Vehicle and Automotive Distributors Association, which represents new and used car sellers in Vermont and truck sellers, as well as the Vermont Transportation Energy Network, which is a collaboration of vehicle sellers and gasoline providers. We collect this data because we think it is of value not only to our members, but to the public and to policymakers. And we house it at vermont10.org. An individual that has helped me collect this information, verify it, and also helps with our regulatory information at the Vermont Vehicle and Automotive Distributors Association is Mike Smith. Mike, to my right. Mike retired from the Department of Motor Vehicles in December of 2024, and he's a valuable resource to the Auto Dealers Association, not only helping us with regulatory issues, as you can imagine, there's quite a few, but also runs our Vermont Auto Cap program, which is a collaboration that we have, the auto dealers have with the Attorney General's office, to ensure that consumers that have a dispute over a vehicle purchase have an opportunity to mediate that dispute. And Mike handles that for the Auto Dealers Association and is available for any questions that I simply can't answer. And so one of the things that we do collect, in addition to information, but of relevance to this committee, I'll just go over it very briefly, which is fuel sales. Because fuel sales directly correlate with revenue raised that in the transportation fund. We sell about 280 million gallons of gasoline every year, about 60 million gallons of diesel fuel. That collects about $100 million for the transportation fund. Over the last 5 years, our sales have been flat, very flat. They haven't gone up, but they haven't really gone down either. The biggest change in sales for gasoline and diesel occurred in 2020. That's, of course, during the pandemic. And they have since increased, but not to the level they were pre-pandemic. And I think that's a combination of factors. Certainly the advent of more different powertrains, more efficient internal combustion engine vehicles, but also people have the opportunity to work from home or to take meetings from home and not travel such long distances. Diesel remains steady throughout because it's largely used by service industry to move goods and services around the state. When we look at the data on vehicles sold in Vermont, and by the way, all of our data comes from Experian AutoCount Accelerate, which is a subscription service that we apply to. It comes in the form of raw spreadsheets with details about everything from the color of cars that are most popular to what type of vehicles are sold in which areas of the state, to how vehicles are purchased. We try to collect just the most relevant stuff to communicate them to policymakers and to our members. But this one just stuck out. So as we look back at reports from aggregators of information, we see that across the United States, sales of U.S. light-duty vehicles have increased by about 2.3%. But that did not happen here in Vermont in 2025. In Vermont, sales of used vehicles have decreased by 11% from 2024, and new vehicles decreased by 8%. We sell about 100,000. Vermonters purchase and register about 100,000 cars a year. When I say purchase and register, it means they may have purchased it in Vermont, but they absolutely registered them in Vermont. They may have purchased in Vermont, registered in New Hampshire, but this is just looking at those vehicles that paid the purchase and use tax and got a green plate and put it on their car. And those numbers have gone down. Now, the natural response that I've gotten when I show this information is, yeah, but our purchase and use tax didn't decline by 8% and by 11%. Yes, because it's based on price, not based on units, whereas most of our gas tax comes on units, gallons, not on the price.
Representative Cox?
Yeah, thanks for providing this data. We did get a little testimony about this sort of loophole in registering used vehicles. Back in the COVID, you had this opportunity to sort of print your own registration, I guess, or your own plate. And so that was a little bit of a concern that some people might be slipping through the getting away with not paying, but we don't really know if that's a lot. Is that a concern to your group, and or do you have any other reasons why the actual number of vehicles registered had gone down, regardless of the tax,
Yes, so representing an industry that wants to sell vehicles, there's lots of theories into why our numbers aren't. Some suggest that perhaps we had a banner 2024 year and that we're reverting back to the mean. But we can see from reading the reports that car loans are getting more expensive, cars are getting more expensive, repos are increasing. So that's sort of a telltale sign that the economy is going in the wrong direction. Not always, but when you dig deeper in the numbers, you sort of see what people are buying and why. If that's okay, I can step through that. Go ahead. Representative Cox.
So could it also be because the cars are so much more expensive, people hold on to their cars longer?
Absolutely.
Drives in 2018, so.
Matt, you had mentioned on the, as far as the economy and driving that, but the diesel fuel sales at 60 million gallons year in, year out doesn't seem to go up or down based on an economic driver of some sort. That demand just remains steady, whether times are perhaps quote unquote better or worse. It just, it's interesting. It doesn't seem to really go up and down by the amount of, by the economy in terms of spending economy that we have out there, consumer economy. And I mean, you wouldn't think that it would go up if there's more building going on, and just kind of curious that there doesn't seem to be any change.
Certainly, this is on-road diesel. These are diesel that goes into
Okay.
class 4 through 8 trucks.
All the goods to get them.
But cows don't take a day off, and you still have to drive a class 8 tractor trailer truck twice a day from Irisburg to Springfield, Massachusetts, to the Agrimart facility every day. So those diesel gallons don't go away. Certainly. But yeah, you would think that in certain industries
That are finished, that are coming in from projects, et cetera, you think that you can see, they don't necessarily have that here, I guess. I find it interesting that there's no economic, you wouldn't compare an economic driver number next to that, it's just continuously flat.
Yeah, and certainly diesel cars are harder to get. So these are all, I drive a diesel car, but for diesel is going into class 4 through 8 trucks.
We it's too far off, but
No, that's okay.
we got time.
So, the top 20 new vehicle makes, this is purchased and registered in Vermont through 12 months of 2025. And you can see the 20 most popular makes when it comes to models. RAV4, year after year, continues to be the most popular vehicle, followed by Subarus. When you look at used vehicles, similar situation. You think of the top 5 brands, both in the new and used vehicle categories, represent more than half of the vehicles sold. The top 10 used vehicles by model, you might see some familiar ones on there. You also see, and this is not unusual given our geography, that the top models, half of them are trucks or big SUVs. When we look at powertrains, we're still predominantly gasoline. 3% diesel, gas electric hybrid, those are increasing, but at for battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, still about 10%. This is through 2025, through the calendar year 2025. We look at battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles by make. Top sellers, not Tesla, it's Hyundai in Vermont. Top 10 new BEVs and PHVs by model. Again, the Hyundai Ioniq has been a pretty big seller. It's important to note that these words there's acronyms are kind of thrown out there, but to understand PHV versus BEV versus HEV, BEV, there is no tank. It is all electric. PHAV, there's a plug, but there's also a tank. Conventional hybrid or HEV, no plug, but it is producing a gas tank that is producing powering the battery that allows it to get superior or better gas mileage than a conventional ICE vehicle. Conventional ICE vehicles, about 33 miles per gallon, you're going to get 40, 45, 50 in most models of hybrid electric vehicles.
Representative Burke?
Maybe it's on here. We talked about it in the past. Do you know what percentage of battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles represent of total vehicles registered?
Yeah, so not just new, but total.
Just what does it represent?
Right. So if you look at, and I don't have that chart, but I will supply it. If you look at all of the vehicles, and there's close to 500,000 registered vehicles in Vermont, the plug-ins, EVs and plug-in hybrids represent about 3%.
How much?
3%.
3%. Wow. But
That's new and used existing registrations. That's not sales.
Sales was the 15 mark, where we're close to.
Yeah. And
15%.
Yeah, that was, I was asking that
They're
because,
different numbers. is what
yeah,
you're asking.
okay,
yeah, there's the universe of cars that
yeah.
we have owned and driven for 15 years and we still register them. Then there's the universe of used cars that are bought new to us, but are actually used. And then there's the universe of new cars that are new to individuals. That's the higher number, of course, the new.
Just because when we were talking about the registration fees, we talked about.
Right.
And comprising 15%.
Oh.
Which is what's true now.
Well, and I'll show you in the next slide if it's okay, Representative Burke. Here is in 2025 compared to 2024, BEVs, pure electric, plug-in hybrid electrics, gas plus plug, HEVs, no plug. And we've seen a decrease. This is the first year. This is the first year in 5 years that we've seen a decrease in the number of battery electric vehicles sold versus prior year. A 20% drop in battery electric vehicles in 2025, new battery electric vehicles than we had in 2024. When it comes to plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, a 28% decrease. Now, some of that is because the manufacturers are either going pure electric or they're sticking to hybrid. Toyota is an example of someone that has been committed to doing hybrid electric vehicles rather than plug-in hybrids. But hybrid electric vehicles, again, where you're getting that 10 to 15 mile per gallon greater fuel efficiency, those are increasing. It's being blocked by my thing, but
That's something.
19%, up 19%.
Representative Couch has a question for you.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming this includes leases.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yes. Yep. So another data point, which I thought was interesting. So $7,500 was the tax credit that you got to knock off your federal taxes, or if you leased it off the top of the bill, if you bought a vehicle, battery electric vehicle. This was a very compelling sales pitch to get people to purchase battery electric vehicles. The Trump administration eliminated this at July 1, HR 1, big, beautiful bill. And one of the things they did was they didn't eliminate it immediately. They eliminated it as of September 30th, 2025. So what we saw nationally is you had dealers with electric vehicles on their lot with a pretty compelling sales pitch. Hey, come on down. The $7,500 is going to go away. You need to take order of this vehicle, put down a deposit on this vehicle before September 30th. You have to drive it off the lot on September 30th, but you had to put down a deposit. And so we thought that September and October would be huge months for sales of battery electric vehicles, because if you wanted to buy one or you're thinking of buying one, better buy in September. Don't wait until January. And nationally, we did see that. We saw an uptick in battery electric vehicle sales in September with the closure of that tax credit. We didn't see that in Vermont, though. We did not see a large increase, which tells me that people that wanted an electric vehicle purchased electric vehicle already. And then in December, we saw a tremendous drop off.
But you testified last year, science no matter. I think that's Representative Wells hammered down home.
But our
Yes, I did.
But our highest in terms of selling battery electric vehicles that do not have any gas at all, was in September, and October of 2024. And I am hard pressed to tell you why those 2 months were so successful.
Representative Pound?
Two things. One is some of the slides are not in our slides we have.
Is this one not in there?
That one's not in there.
Okay, I will resend it.
No worries. Then the other thing is, we're not an island here, so it's like New Hampshire sales, sort of. While we saw electric vehicles nationwide go up because of because of the tax credits, but not in Vermont. Is that true in like New England? Is it just a Vermont thing, or do you think it's more regional, or you're not sure?
So I'm not sure. I can tell you there's two ways that I can gather data, and we've been fairly consistent with how we do it, which is you can track it based on where the vehicle was purchased or where the vehicle was registered. We choose registration because that is directly connected with purchase and use tax. And when you look at where a vehicle was purchased, someone from New Hampshire, Massachusetts, or New York may have come to Vermont, purchased a vehicle, and then brought it out of state. So we rather than track that, and the numbers are similar, they're not too different, but this is vehicles that we know have green plates on it, and that's sort of how we've situated ourselves. Now, what will January look like? Well, we'll know in 14 days. We get this data pretty quickly, and we update it every month to determine whether or not electric vehicle sales continue that December slide, or whether December was an anomaly. We don't know. But back to the slide that you've seen before. And so when we track new battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, now not all plug-in hybrid vehicles count, or they count at a lower rate towards the Advanced Clean Car 2 initiative, which required, still alive in some form. It's being litigated right now, and it's being on pause by Governor Scott. But model year 2026, we were to be at 35%. And as we close 2025, again, this is the first time in 4 years where the number of battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid vehicles sold and registered in Vermont, purchased and then registered in Vermont, declined. So we're now at 10%.
Do you think that decline also has to do with the end of our state incentives?
Absolutely. But a lot of it has to do with,
2020.
I mean, it's
2020.
it's a gumbo, quite honestly, Representative Burke. I mean, it's the federal incentive, it's the state incentives, it's the manufacturers pushing it, it's the favorable lease agreements that encourage people to adopt battery electric vehicles. There's a whole bunch of factors that certainly go into whether or not. I mean, look at the ads on TV during the Steelers game. I mean, there was a time where every single car manufacturer was talking about their battery electric vehicles. Now it's very difficult to find those ads just casually. The manufacturers have made a pivot, and the dealers in Vermont and elsewhere want to sell A, vehicles that our manufacturers provide, and B, the vehicles that our customers want. And largely speaking, they want trucks. And they want gas-powered
Federal
trucks.
policy. But
Yeah. It's certainly a gumbo.
promoting, yes, gasoline powered.
And the other reason why battery electric vehicles did so well in 2024 is the change in how that $7,500 tax credit is calculated, allowing someone who leases a battery electric vehicle to take that off right off the top. It makes very favorable lease rates for battery electric vehicles. And you heard that in testimony last year from Phil Alderman, who came here from Alderman Chevrolet in Rutland, talking about how there's just some incredible deals out there. And you can see that in the data that we collect about how Vermonters pay for new vehicles. Leasing is about how if you look at all the vehicles, about a third of how we purchase cars. But in BEVs, 70%. So a couple things. One is you might lease a vehicle that you're not sure you're in love with, but you think you like. That's great. And you want something new, or it's a favorable rate. But what happens at the end of the lease, as you know, whether it's a 24-month, 36, 48, then you have a choice as a consumer. Do I want to purchase the rest of this vehicle, or do I want to drop it off at the dealership and turn it in? Then the dealer has a choice whether or not to purchase that vehicle from the manufacturer who still owns it on the lease, or it goes back to the manufacturer and then is then sold at auction or transferred to another dealership. So we're going to learn a lot in the next 36 months as a lot of these favorable leases come off lease, and what happens with it. Will they be in Vermont and be used again, be sold again and stay in Vermont? Will they go back to the manufacturer? Will they be shipped somewhere else? We don't know, but there will be some very important decisions that many consumers have over the next 24 to 36 months as they turn in those battery electric vehicles. Do they go back to gas? Do they buy another BEV? Do they have the rest of the lease on their BEV? We don't know yet, but it's something that's really important.
Now, on that pie chart there, if there was trends over time for the different ways that vehicles are paid for, is that volatile or is that a slow, consistent? In other words, would it change significantly from year to year? Meaning half the vehicle, half the vehicles are financed. Is that grown over the years, or is that volatile? Sometimes it's up higher or lower. Not that they necessarily have that. I'm just curious if it's changed substantially over 10 years, or if it
I don't know
it
about,
goes every year, it goes up and down.
yeah, Gerard, that's a good question. I don't know about 10 years. I can tell you over the last 3 years that I've been tracking this, when all vehicles, roughly half financed, third lease, 20% cash. That's fairly consistent. The 70%, and I checked it with my colleagues in other states. I say, are you seeing this? And they're like, and I'm sort of the rookie here. They're like, yeah, of course, because of what happened with the $7,500. It just made it so much more attractive. That plus the manufacturer's discounts to move electric vehicles certainly inspired that. I don't think that will continue, that 70% number on BEV leases. But I could be wrong.
Thank you.
That's all I have. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have about vehicle sales or regulations or anything else to do with the car truck world or oil and gas.
Representative White?
I have a comment and a couple questions. Thank you for this. So, first of all, 500,000 vehicles are registered in the state of Vermont. I mean, only 600 something thousand people. That's extraordinary.
Within one car.
Five right by driveway.
Well, that's Jim, your problem.
Construction.
No, we needed him to pay.
He's not the problem, actually.
Yes, and remember that also includes businesses that have.
Yeah, okay, yeah. No, I'm thinking residential, yeah, okay. So my questions, so I think I've heard you say, but I want to make sure that electric vehicle incentives drove car sales. Your retailers felt what, I thought I took that from earlier testimony, but Representative Wells might have been
I
thinking
think,
something different, so I
I
just.
think I tried to hedge my comment, Representative White, by saying it's a bit of a gumbo. There's no question having some sort of a rebate incentive that you can move vehicles helps. And sometimes it comes from the manufacturer who wants to move a particular line. And they're going to give more favorable pricing to the dealers that they can offer to their consumers. Sometimes it comes from a government subsidy or incentive. Sometimes it comes from a federal tax credit. It all play a role in moving these vehicles. I would just say what shocked me when I anticipated that because I heard all the ads, I turn on the radio, turn on the TV, come on down. This is your last chance to get that $7,500 tax credit. I just assumed there would be a big push in September, October. In fact, I made poor Mike run the numbers 10 times because I said, we should be selling a lot more electric vehicles. Now, sometimes there's a lag, right? So you buy the vehicle on September 30th, maybe it doesn't get reported until October 15th. So then we reran the numbers on the 16th and And we didn't see that jump that my colleagues in other states saw. But perhaps they didn't have a banner year in September, October of 2024 like we did. So hard to know, but so I did expect the end of the federal tax credit to bump EV sales. I was wrong, but I won't say that rebates and incentives don't work. Anything that you have that helps consumers save money and that you can advertise, free inspections, free car mats, you name it.
2 years,
3 years oil changes.
Yeah, free washer fluid,
But if we were able to get some type of EV incentive back in our state legislation, maybe as a tax credit for, car sales or salesmen, these companies that are selling cars, do you think that would be helpful?
I would have to, it's hard to know what a generic, would incentives work? Would do incentives help? Yes. Would it be worth the cost, the accompanying cost? I don't know. It's hard to know without knowing where the money's coming from and.
Yeah.
And
But if it were, a tax break for companies that they could saving on their like state income tax. And then passing that on to consumers, would that be,
I'd like to give that some more thoughtful analysis. I really don't know.
okay,
I know from the sales perspective, it helps to have something to encourage people to come on down and take a drive. But I don't know what works better than others, other than having multiple stacked rebates certainly moved EVs. There's no question that which ones had more effect on the consumer, whether it was the federal tax credit or the replace your ride program or the electric utilities credit or the manufacturer's rebate, the favorable lease agreements. It could be all of the above or one in particular. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking here, remembering that we had like huge increase in the 2 years leading up to 2025, from 2020 to 2025, the sales of plug-ins and battery electric vehicles nearly doubled. That was the year when we had, those are the years when we had this incentive. Now it's going down.
We all set, Representative?
Oh, sorry.
Are you all set?
I'm done. Yeah,
My bad, it's
sorry.
still your floor if you want.
Sorry.
Representative Pouch and then Representative McCoy.
Yeah, you have the data from the DMV reports and whatnot. Do you have data from dealers or manufacturers who I'm sure are like, asking people, hey, EV owners, when you're done with your car, which kind of car do you plan to buy? Are you going to keep it? Are you not? Is there more sort of, even though it's just some data, it's not perfect. Is there more indication there that the trend to move away from EVs is, going to build as people change their cars, as these leases come up? I guess you probably said you don't really know yet. So.
Well, there's a number of consulting firms that do some amazing analysis, survey customers, and I'm happy to send that to you. What I have learned and what I truly believe, which is this: if you have a garage or a dedicated 20 by 10 spot outside your house, you have access to a service panel, which will afford you, they allow you to use a level 2 charger. And you have a second vehicle because you have enough money to have a second vehicle that you can take for long trips or trips where maybe you don't want to take your EV. Then I think those individuals, generally, from what I'm hearing from dealers, auto dealers, will stick with EVs. Don't go back to gas. But in situations where that is not the case, where they don't have access to a home charger, where they can't get access, maybe because of lack of funds or perhaps because they don't have the capacity to have a service panel that can accommodate a level 2 charger, and they did get a favorable lease agreement, they're going back to gas. So it really matters what the individual circumstances are, and sometimes that's economic. And sometimes that's just, I live out in the country and I have a 1970s house with knob and tune wiring, and I'm not gonna pay an electrician to do this. So I can save, $300 in gasoline a year.
Thanks.
You're good. Representative Wells, you're up.
You're all set?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, it sounds overwhelmingly like the great incentives get a lot of people to try these vehicles. The incentives ran out. They didn't like the car that much or enough to buy another one, so they switched back to gas.
Well, no,
That's what we're feeling now. 20% down.
I didn't testify to that, Representative Wells. However, I can say with confidence that we will always, that electric vehicles will always have an important foothold in Vermont. That 10% appears to be the floor. But getting to 35%, as was envisioned in the Advanced Clean Car 2, is an impossibility. Where we'll be at the end of the decade, I'm confident we'll be higher than 10% of new car sales will be electric vehicles, but I don't think we'll be close to 35%.
Very diplomatic.
We also. Representative Casey.
Has anybody ever come up with a figure of how much it would actually cost through incentives and everything, the way they were to get at 35%? I mean, that'd be a lot of money, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Don't know that.
I bet a lot of people don't.
And it's different for every individual. And every circumstance is different. It's not one size fits all.
The January 2024 and the January 2025 are pretty substantial numbers, 250 or more, and 375 or more. Any idea what January 26 are gonna, that's a big drop. Have you seen your 2-3 weeks in? I mean, are your members busy as can be, or are they feeling, what are you hearing?
January is not a great month.
Right, but January 24, it was 400 electric vehicles and it was.
So let me point out the flaws in my own data. And Mike will back this up. Some of it is the collections. So if I buy a vehicle on December 31st, that may not get reported until in the DMV system until January 15th. So the fact that January 2024 was so strong could actually be that December 2023 was strong. And there's no way I can discern which car was bought on January 1 and which car was actually bought on December 25th. And all I can tell you is this is what was reported to the DMV, and there's always a lag. So it's not perfect month by month. It's a good representation, but it's consistent, but there's some wiggle on the month. So my assumption, Mike, you please correct me if you think I'm wrong. My assumption is the banner 2024 was partly due to a fantastic December.
So also to clarify, the significant amount of leases that were available, and it was a pretty significant, obviously there was a nice chunk there on that same slide you have on there. There was
This
a
one?
huge amount of these battery electric vehicles that were September of 24, October, November, very big. How many of those months that were above the 300 plus? So what's the timeline when you're going to be able to tell whether those people stay in their electric vehicle or not? There's a sort of this idea that there was a huge attractiveness of 2 and 3 year leases
Yes.
and whatnot. What's the timeline that we'll be watching to see what those people do at the end of their lease? And when will we kind of get an idea of whether they stay in electric or not? And what's the timeline that we should be really looking to see how those vehicles will transition to that end of that lease?
If the earliest, because some of the shortest leases were 24 months. So as I look at it, we should be seeing activity in late summer, July, August, September of 2026. That will give us a real indication of whether the leasees come back to the lot and hand over their keys and walk away or buy an ICE vehicle, or whether they purchase their vehicle off lease. And then, of course, it's up to the manufacturer to decide. The manufacturer can decide to, we're going to take all the leases back. Or they can say, oh, you can keep it on your lot, but you'll pay us this. That's a negotiation between the manufacturer and the franchise owner. But the consumer, of course, has the first choice, and that is to either turn in the keys or to purchase a used vehicle that they prior leased.
Sometimes as far as conversion or staying in electric, we'll really start to see that at the end of the summer and the fall of 2026. And when we come back, for those of us who just do or don't come back next year at this time, we'll be sort of in the middle of that transition.
Absolutely.
The beginning is this summer, early fall. A year from now, we'll start to, would it be fair to say you'll have a pretty good gauge a year from now on whether or not people are staying in electric or
Yeah.
going in a different direction?
Yeah, and we'll know that, we'll have a better understanding of that, and we'll also have a better understanding of how well these older cars perform. So if people thought, I don't want to buy a 5-year-old electric vehicle, we might find out that that's actually just fine.
So we don't know what the used car market of electric vehicles, but we will have a better picture of the used car market of what electric vehicle used car market is
Yeah.
a year from now, about a year from now.
And that's, of course, important because vehicles usually have 3 lives. And if it's a battery electric vehicle that's leased or purchased here, and that stays here and then it's sold at obviously a lower price than a new car, that stays in the system, and those numbers grow of non-gas burning vehicles. But that's still to be determined.
Yeah, I just feel like I need to sort of counter some of the doom and gloom about electric vehicles, because I think I don't have a garage, I have a charger. I know people who live near the hospital, they go charge at the hospital at nighttime, and they're allowed to do that. I think that, and with the NEVI money, which apparently is going to get deployed, we will have more chargers. And I think the number is, from my experience, little by little, there are more chargers. I don't know if you've felt that, but just as we drive around. And I guess, I think it's just, if people want to make the commitment. And I think that it's also, for probably the program that we had, Mileage Smart program, that really helped people have lower transportation costs. It's a really important thing. And affordability issue is very, very important right now, especially for lower income people. So I think that it's not always, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but I just think that we need to also just think positively about them as a solution. And to air quality, it's really important. A lot of people have asthma and particulates from, I guess, ice vehicles are getting cleaner, but we can think about that too. So I just understand what you're saying about the data, but I'm also hoping we can be more, obviously incentives, but new kinds of incentives, I guess. Promotions. And strength football.
If I may, Jared, you're right, it does take a commitment, and some are absolutely willing to do that, and others
Yeah.
might need coaxing. But I would say that the gasoline sellers in Vermont, many of them are committed to providing that charge. So NEVI money, while a significant sum of money, won't cover the entire state. And we'll need the existing motor fuel suppliers or retail establishments to build that network out. And so, Tom Frawley at Summit, RO Valley, Boble, there are a couple of large in-state Vermont motor fuel retailers that are committed to providing level 2, level 3 charging capabilities, because they see that as part of their business model of not just selling gas, but selling stuff inside the store, hot foods, healthy foods, and vehicle charging, and good coffee. So that model is changing, and I just don't want, it's not just that, yes, NEVI money is important, but so is the network of existing motor fuel stations that are trying to capture some of this market too.
It's one up on Route 15 in Hardwick.
One just opened in Richmond, right off the interstate there by the car park.
I would add that as far as whether that sounded doom or gloom, to support a new battery electric vehicle market, it will be very helpful to know if we can have a robust used vehicle market. Excuse me. It's hard to have just one without the other, I suspect.
Right.
So Representative Lally here next, and then,
Yeah, I think
excuse
I
me.
appreciate you describe what it's like at your home location, Representative Burke. I think what you described shows that setting and locations that offer compact walkable density are going to make this convenient and affordable for people. As some people know, I'm a native of Washington, DC, and have a number of friends who have recently taken up EVs. And in DC, you park on the street. You do not have access to a charging station. Many people don't. So what do? You walk a block to the local Whole Foods and charge it there overnight, or you charge it at the workplace. I mean, there's a lot of that's what people are doing. And it's, they're making it work, and it's pretty convenient, but we're not living in a place that affords that just yet. I wish we did, but we don't.
It's true. And if I just
There you go. Yeah.
so
This way.
just tag off on that comment, that's all right, which is one of the largest seller of vehicles, manufactured vehicles in Vermont. It's not Subaru. Everyone thinks Subaru is the top seller. It's Toyota. It has been consistently over the last couple of years. And their commitment is to hybrid electric vehicles. You might say, yeah, but there's no plug there. Yes, but you're saving you're getting 40 to 50 miles per gallon out of a vehicle there. And they've made a commitment. They've gone the other direction. Where everyone was chasing EVs, they've gone towards hybrid electric vehicles. That will have and those sales are increasing about 13%. And that's the one powertrain that has shown growth. I expect that will continue. And while that will never require a charger, it will reduce sales of gasoline, will impact the transportation fund, but will not produce as much tailpipe emissions.
Representative White?
I want to second what Representative
Sorry.
Burke said about, the support for electric vehicles. I have one car. It is fully electric. I don't have a backup. Takes me a little longer to go on road trips, but so I think that it's important that we don't abandon something that was decided was part of our solution to cutting down emissions and our reliance on fossil fuels. And we know that consumer behavior takes a while to change. And we've had 5 years of, rolling out this program. And now without incentive, it's kind of coming to a halt. And so I think there is opportunity to try to get this back up walking again. Because this isn't going to go away. We're going to get it without going into any federal commentary. But so that's my comment. And then to your comment on a lot of your dealerships investing in level 2s and level 3s, do you have a list of dealerships that have level 3 charging stations at their lots that are available to the public? And I ask that because as this infrastructure is still being implemented across the country, I mean, as an EV driver, I have found that like Ford dealers don't necessarily advertise that they have level 3 chargers, but they're very good, reliable chargers throughout New England that I stop at. The Pony Ford in New Hampshire on the way to Boston is a great charging station. So, I mean, how many of your dealers are offering that? And is that information that we're sharing with the consumers who do have electric vehicles?
So, you're referring to car dealers, not motor fuel dealers.
Yes.
Car dealers.
Okay.
Yes, certainly in order to sell electric vehicles, manufacturers have created certain requirements in order to receive the electric vehicles, there are certain requirements that they invest in level 2 and level 3 chargers. Many of them are used in order to make sure that people can test drive their car in a fully drive car, or that they, when they work on a car, that it can be charged. I don't have the breakdown, but I will endeavor to find out whether or not those are accessible to the public. But yeah, every new car dealer that sells electric vehicles has some level of chargers because they've had to upgrade their infrastructure.
And I think the level 3 is what is kind of most important. Because you know, you can come in and get a charge on it like half an hour as opposed to like 4 hours. But, and were you saying that your fuel dealers are also investing in level 2 and level 3 chargers?
Yeah, so the gasoline dealers, particularly the new facilities that have the square footage. I mean, a great example is the one that just opened in Richmond, the Barn 2. But Summit Distributing, Tom Frawley's made investments in the Randolph facility and the White River facility as well for level 3 chargers. And you're seeing more, because the reality is that even if it's only half an hour versus a couple hours or 20 minutes versus whatever, it still provides an opportunity for commerce.
Yeah.
I mean, some people charge and read a book in the car. But a lot of people charge and then go buy coffee or something to eat. And but not every grocery store or gas station has that square footage pavement, flat pavement, on which they can accommodate that. It's usually the newer ones, the nicer ones, the bigger ones.
Representative Keyser, you're.
Well, I'm very encouraged to see that the petroleum industry is embracing the electrification, because if you don't have convenience, the vast unwashed will not do this. It's got to be convenient, in my way of thinking. And from another point of view, given the fact that we do have a large group of electric vehicles around us, these people are coming into our communities. They're spending a lot of money, and if we don't provide for their recreational use of their vehicle, it will decrease the amount of tourism. I think this is going to encourage. I mean, I just think of the number of Teslas that come up to Killington every year,
Right.
and that I encourage the Killington operation to put some chargers in. I think they're going to do that, but I think if you get you've got a footprint that will support it, I'm glad to see that the industry is moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Representative Couch, you want to go?
Yeah, I was gonna sort of comment on that, you know, understanding the fuel dealers. I mean, nobody today is putting up a gas station and all they do is sell gas. You know, I mean, they put up a convenience store and they put the gas station there to get you to the convenience store. It seems that that's the piece. And for the same reason, 'cause I know how when I charge, you know, I'm like, well, maybe I'll go get something to eat. I'll do something else because I've got a little bit of time to do that. So it's encouraging to hear that. And that will expand on what was just said, you know, getting tourists here. I'll say when I'm off charging somewhere in New England, I think 50% of the people I'm charging next to are Canadian. And so, you know, you need that infrastructure, and it's good to see that while the Navy fills, you know, got things going, is getting things going, and that's an important piece to get the commercial folks involved, and that it seems like it will work for them too, so that's good.
Excuse me. I guess we're near the end, unless you have any summary that you want to throw at the end.
I don't, but you know, this is information that we track because I think it's of value to our members. We think it's of value to Vermonters, and we certainly think it's of value to members committee. And we will update it and post it every month. And Mike Smith can be a great resource to this committee if you have questions about this individual rules and regulations. So glad to have him on the team.
We got one more here. Representative Rowley.
I was just wondering if you had any information about when you do see like a level 3 or something, thinking in South Burlington, there are a couple of them went in at the parking lot where the Talbots is on Route 7.
Yeah.
So how does something like that happen? Is that like through a lease with the utility or how is that?
It can take a lot of different shapes, sizes. So like, for instance, to get the NEVI money, the federal money, there are very strict parameters, which Patrick Murphy can go into in great detail. That for some has been in Bradford, that was a success. For others, they look at it and go, it doesn't quite fit our model. There are certain requirements with using that NEVI money, that it's open 24 hours, so on and so forth. Other situations, it's the charging company that is simply leasing the land, and they are the ones that are processing the credit cards, maintaining the maintenance on the equipment. Other dealers decide, no, I want to own, do you own your own modem or do you lease it from your internet company? It's kind of like the same deal. So there are a lot of gasoline stations. I don't know the situation with Talbot's, it's my backyard, that decide, no, I want to own the machine, paid to service it, and then have the profits for the sales of electrons. It can vary between those different models.
Is this something that like Green Mountain Power has gotten in the game of, or I'm wondering, like, here's where I'm going.
Yeah.
How can we have more of these things on our streets to just charge like you have in Montreal, for example?
Well, it would be helpful. Well, first of all, you need the adequate power supply. You mean for public charging is what you're referring to.
Yeah.
You need adequate power supply, and then you need space. You need square footage, and then you need significant. I'd have to review the numbers because I'm sure these have changed. I don't know if they've ticked up or ticked down given the rate of inflation versus the proliferation of these devices, but it's a significant. I don't want to quote it right now, but it was six figures when someone told me how much they invested in a single charger. That's when's your return on your investment? Is it coming from sales of electrons or is it coming from sales of other stuff? And some would take a more risk averse approach and simply lease the land to someone who wants to risk that capital. Others see a excellent business opportunity and want to own the equipment and the profits that come from selling electrons to people in electric cars. And I don't know what is more. I don't know what is the more common thing today. I'm happy to do some more investigating and get back to you.
Really interesting to
Yeah.
know. Thank you. Yeah. Because I think someone said to me that, which I thought makes so much sense, that we should reframe it as charger anxiety rather than range anxiety. And I've been thinking about this, and I think that makes a lot of sense, and so then that leads me to, so how do we have more chargers? Yeah.
And part of it too, quite honestly, is that Tesla was, despite all the politics around the person that's involved in Tesla, one of the things that was done early on, which was really smart because they had the capital, because they were a publicly traded company, was to invest in a nationwide charging network. And some of the manufacturers are working together to make a similar type investment. So there's agreements for non-Tesla vehicles to use Tesla chargers. However, developing their own charging network, a competing charging network, something that is actively being investigated and being invested in.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Smith, Mr. Dakota. Thank you for your afternoon.